Obviously now we're in a completely different place. People are brands, investors, owners. I mean, everybody is coming to the table and understanding that women's sports is good business. It's such a fun and exciting time, and I am glad I've stuck with it all these years to get to be part of what's now very exciting.
Caitlin Clark's treatment in the league has now drawn attention from lawmakers with calls for accountability and the possibility of federal investigation being raised. But what exactly happened? What is Caitlin Clark's camp saying? And why is WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert facing so much pressure? Let's jump straight into today's video and break it all down. The WNBA is experiencing a huge development that has nothing to do with final scores or highlight clips. What began as a few hard fouls against Caitlin Clark has turned into something far more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. Fans may never fully understand what's going on behind the scenes due to the intense terror in the boardroom, government-level investigations, and rumors of federal participation. Consider it. How recently have you heard of the Department of Justice taking a quick look at a professional sports league? Very seldom. However, Clark's treatment on the court is now making its way to the desks of federal investigators, legislators, and lawyers with ties to Washington. Here's the startling turn of events. This was not an accident. Insiders claim that every shove, blindside hit, and careless foul was monitored, recorded, and subtly incorporated into a system that resembles a legal chess game more than basketball. The WNBA believed that this was about sports, but Caitlin Clark's team simply made it into a conflict that the league might no longer be able to manage. This is no longer a single rookie tale. This is a tale about money, power, and how the biggest star in women's basketball just pushed the league into an unexpected confrontation. Everything appears straightforward at first glance. The most anticipated rookie in WNBA history was Caitlin Clark. With sold-out venues, record-breaking ratings, and unprecedented interest for women's basketball, she was positioned as the athlete who would bring the WNBA into the mainstream, the future, and the golden ticket. However, something sinister emerged along with that attention. From the start, Clark was not only put to the test, but also singled out. The clips were widely viewed by fans. Without hesitation, Kennedy Carter blindsided her in front of the cameras as if it were an NFL play. Diamond DeShields charged into her. It appeared more like a hockey fight than a basketball game because Marina McBraw shoved her so forcefully in the hopes that no one would notice. Even seasoned Tina Charles sneaked in a cheap shot to Clark's back. These were not standalone plays. These videos became a theme and a pattern, and they became viral on social media. The story was predictable at start. Greetings from the W. She needs to toughen up. Analysts argued it was written off by commentators as a sign of her inexperience, and the executives of the league remained silent. There were no firm declarations, no cautions, and not even a trace of discipline. Fans, however, didn't accept the justification. They witnessed the popular compilations, the hashtags pleading for safety, and the slow-motion footage in which Clark was consistently struck harder than anyone else on the floor. What appeared to be a formidable defense soon became something much darker. One player's back is clearly the target. Additionally, Clark's intimate group perceived it differently from the media, which dismissed it as typical rookie hazing. They observed a pattern that could be weaponized, exploited, and ultimately turned into a federal problem for which the WNBA would never be prepared. These weren't sporadic infractions or plays made in the heat of the moment. They were a conscious attempt to test Caitlin Clark, disrupt her rhythm, and make her reconsider each time she touched the ball. They were a part of a broader culture. Players freely acknowledged it in dressing rooms. There was a clear message being given to Clark. You have to pay a fee to enter this league and take control. This is where things get risky, though. The secrecy surrounding those admissions was short-lived. One of the strongest networks in all of sports, Clark's representation was secretly keeping score. Like evidence in a case file, every shove, elbow, and comment from an opponent or teammate was recorded, time-stamped, and categorized. They weren't just upset that Clark had been roughed up on the court. Instead, they were constructing a case to move the discussion from basketball to the legal and political spheres. Take a moment to consider that her team was already 3 steps ahead, portraying her treatment as workplace harassment rather than sporting drama, while fans argued whether she just needed to toughen up. When you use the term harassment, The game is entirely altered because harassment takes place in federal offices where the language of civil rights law becomes the playbook rather than in locker rooms or ESPN studios. Since they had expected this from the beginning, Clark's camp understood exactly what they were doing. They were aware that a celebrity with her prominence would encounter physical targeting, animosity, and jealousy. They therefore got ready for it, turned it into a weapon, and bided their time till the ideal opportunity to use it. For everyone else, the increase seemed abrupt because of this. Because Clark's crew had previously arranged the pieces like a chessboard, prepared to push the WNBA into an unavoidable corner while the league was asleep at the wheel. The moment Washington was drawn into the storm marked a turning point. What appeared to the general public to be just another sports scandal abruptly gained federal attention, and it began with only one letter. WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert received an official notification from Senator Jim Banks. Insiders knew it was anything but random, even though the majority dismissed it as political posturing. The purpose of that letter was not to make headlines. It was timed intentionally, legally accurate, prepared for the record, and intended to produce a paper trail that would lead to government review. Here's why that's important. Press conferences are not necessary for federal agencies such as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the Department of Justice to take action. They are not required to make public threats or announce investigations. For Clark's camp to covertly start preliminary reviews behind the scenes, all they need is one plausible trigger, such as a letter from a senator or the mountain of documented material they have been gathering. Internal notes are recorded, phone calls are made, information is asked, and nobody outside those offices is even aware of it until it suddenly becomes widely known. This is no longer about hard fouls or missed calls. Discrimination and harassment at work are governed by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And if it can be demonstrated that Clark's treatment is different from that of other players, particularly if it is related to her gender, race, or status, then the WNBA is now dealing with more than simply a public relations issue. They are facing possible exposure to the federal government. Federal exposure also entails mandatory transparency, reforms, and the worst-case scenario for any sports league. Discovery is the legal procedure that brings every private correspondence, internal email, and unsaid truth to light.